Now, earlier today, there was a hearing with Robert Mueller. He testified to members of Congress and had its fair share of interesting events, including when Mueller responded to the question of if President Trump can be charged with a crime, the crime of obstruction, even after he's not president. Well, now that was interesting. That was something new that we learned. And also, Robert Mueller affirmed once again that he did not clear Donald Trump of any crimes. But the hearing was also filled with Republican idiocy, like whenever, for example, Louis Gohmert talks or yells about injustice. It's so much injustice what we're doing to Donald Trump. So now this gets me to, of course, the Republican strategy, right? So this is the grand Republican strategy that you saw to defeat Mueller's testimony. And part of it is, again, to sabotage Mueller's, how people view Robert Mueller, his credibility, and also to bring up the Steele dossier. Now, let me give you an example of Matt Gaetz, whose main argument against Mueller is, yeah, but the Steele dossier. Take a look.
It is absurd to suggest that a operative for the Democrats was meeting with this Russian lawyer the day before and the day after the Trump Tower meeting, and yet that's not something you referenced. Now, Glenn Simpson testified under oath. He had dinner with Veselnitskaya the day before and the day after this meeting with the Trump team. Do you have any basis, as you sit here today, to believe that Steele was lying?
As I said before, and I'll say again, it's not my purview. Others are investigating what you
So it's not your purview to look into whether or not Steele's lying. It's not your purview to look into whether or not anti-Trump Russians are lying to Steele. And it's not your purview to look at whether or not Glenn Simpson was meeting with the Russians the day before and the day after you write 3,500 words about the Trump campaign meeting. So I'm wondering how these decisions are guided. I look at the Inspector General's report. I'm citing from page 404 of the Inspector General's report. It states, Page stated, Trump's not ever going to be president, right? Right. Strzok replied, no, he's not. We'll stop it. Also in the Inspector General's report, there's someone identified as attorney number two. Attorney number two, this is page 419, replied, hell no, and then added, Viva la resistance. Attorney number two in the Inspector General's report and Strzok both worked on your team, didn't they?
Peter Strzok worked for me for a period of time, yes.
Yeah, but so did the other guy that said Viva la resistance. And here's what I'm kind of noticing, Director Mueller. When people associated with Trump lied, you threw the book at him. When Christopher Steele lied, nothing. And so it seems to be that when Glenn Simpson met with Russians, nothing. When the Trump campaign met with Russians, 3,500 words. And maybe the reason why there are this discrepancies in what you focused on is because the team was so biased.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
Pledged to stop Trump.
Jeffries.
Well, that is a big assumption where he basically just throws out, wow, it was Christopher Steele. Absolutely lied. Did he, though? Well, we'll get to his credibility in a minute because he did make some very salacious claims, some of which we haven't found to be true, some of which actually are true. So we'll get to that. But first, he kept asking, well, I mean, Steele dossier. Why don't you talk about it? Why don't you talk about it? That's because it's an ongoing investigation, you putz. But look, I guess that's kind of the point, right? Let's not talk about obstruction. No, let's focus on the Steele dossier. Let's talk about Peter Strzok and his opinions that he doesn't like Donald Trump. You know who else he didn't like? He didn't like Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders. And by the way, in the context of, oh, don't worry, we'll stop him, they mean the voters. He literally thought, oh, no, the voters, we're going to stop Donald Trump. If it were an FBI plot conspiracy to try to stop Donald Trump, which is ridiculous, then they probably would have stopped Donald Trump if it were the deep state, right? Unless, of course, the deep state is so incredibly inept that maybe you don't even have to worry about it because they suck at their jobs. I don't know. But this is what the Republican strategy is to basically obfuscate, change the, flip the script, change the narrative here as, no. This isn't about President Trump doing criminal things like obstruction. Oh, no. This is about everyone being so unfairly biased against Donald Trump that they tried to stop him and they sucked so badly at it that they couldn't. That's their narrative, right? And here's the thing. Both Peter Strzok and Lisa Page were fired for being anti-Trump. As soon as that came out, as soon as they found out that, Oh, he sent negative text messages about Donald Trump. Gone. Fired. Immediately gone. Okay, so he worked for you once. And he was fired. Because he was not... And look, I agreed with the firing because you need to be impartial, you need to be fair, and give everyone a fair hearing based on the facts. If you have some preconceived notions, well, that might color your investigation. And so, look, if you want to be 100% fair to anybody, even Donald Trump, you have to make sure that you have people that are neutral. I mean, again, maybe I make too much sense. But anyway, now, what Gaetz is doing is basically he's repeating conspiracy theories that came straight from the mouth of Sean Hannity and Fox News. Now, what about the dirty dossier? Well, what about the obstruction of justice? One of those things is a crime. Yeah, but that's funded by the Democrats. That Fusion GPS. Okay. You know, in the words of Trump, they call that Oppo research. Okay. Now, here's the thing. A couple of weeks ago, the Justice Department had an opportunity to grill Christopher Steele. So what happened? They did it for 16 hours. And while the meeting was described as contentious, investigators, this is from the IG, right? They ultimately found Steele's testimony to be credible. They also added that he had offered both new and important information. And a lot of this, of course, has to do with Carter Page and him, meeting with Russians. In fact, a lot of the information in that dossier was eventually proven to be true during a series of different investigations. Again, Carter Page meeting with the CEO of a Russian oil company, Rosneft, as well as other high-level Russian officials, right? So, nonetheless, the Republican strategy is to basically pin the entire investigation on the dossier. Oh, no, it was started, the Mueller investigation was started because of the dirty dossier. No, it actually wasn't. That is a pure lie. And then they say fake dossier, fake investigation, politically motivated. They're 100% biased. Again, this is pure projection against, pure projection from the Republicans. But that's their goal. So now watching this, it's obvious that Gaetz is only there to push a specific narrative, which has led, of course, to fun on social media. Walter Schaub saying, Matt Gaetz is 30 seconds away from mentioning the Illuminati and the lizard people. Or it could be the aliens. Now, I'm not saying it's the aliens, but it's the aliens. Could be, anyway. I don't know. Maybe the lizard people are aliens. Mike Avila says, okay, Gohmert, Jim Jordan, and National Embarrassment Matt Gaetz have had their turn. Any others left to sit in front of the seat, in the front seat of the GOP clown car? No. I think that's about it. Adam Best said, to the GOP, this isn't just a hearing. It's an unofficial episode of The Apprentice where Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan, and Louis Gohmert and the rest of the sycophants compete to see who can suck up to Trump the most. I would say that seems to be fairly accurate. Because, again, all they did was they didn't talk at all about the whole point of the hearing, which is the Mueller investigation and what that report, or what was found and put into that report, which, by the way, much of it is still redacted. Brandon Buckman said this, Gaetz has presented no questions about obstruction, instead focusing on Steele, Simpson, which Mueller have already said he cannot discuss because there are currently other investigations going on. A note, Gaetz told the New York Times yesterday that his goal with today's hearing is, quote, we are going to re-elect the president. So already he's like, look, that's my goal, and here's how I'm going to do it. I mean, it's fairly obvious the role that he is playing. And unfortunately, a lot of Republicans, most of the Republicans up there that spoke today and asked questions, were all along the same lines. We have to re-elect Trump, so we are going to do whatever we can to obfuscate this hearing. And to, cast aspersions on Trump's asparagus or something, or Mueller's asparagus. I don't know. Whatever Louis Gohmert was trying to do. But Nick Pappas added on, saying anti-Trump Russians is like saying the sober Matt Gaetz. And so that's funny, right? So which anti-Trump Russians are there? That's the first I've ever heard of that. Are there anti-Trump Russians? I'm sure. Yeah, I don't think all Russians like Donald Trump. I don't think all Russians like Vladimir Putin, of course, right? But where are the anti-Trump Russians in this? That's kind of weird. It's kind of a weird thing to talk about. Tom Nichols says Gaetz notes that there's many fine decaffeinated brands in the market, right? Well, to be fair, caffeine is awesome, and so, I'm going to be against switching to a less caffeinated brand. Jennifer Hayden says Matt Gaetz is the equivalent of an old Caps tweeting. It's between him and Louis Gohmert, really, of who screamed the most during these hearings. Ken Tremendous says, does the fact that Matt Gaetz' Twitter bio includes a quote from Trump saying, Gaetz is handsome, cracked the top 10 most embarrassing things about him? I'm not sure it does. You go ahead and you can look at that Twitter bio. It is in there. It's true. How very, very sad. Tim Alberta said, Matt Gaetz is not a legislator. He's an entertainer. And he was quoting someone else. That person happened to be former Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, who just said, oh, yeah, Gaetz, he's an entertainer. He's not a serious person. He's not a legislator. All he does is theater. Good to know. Good to know. And finally, Aaron Rupar said Matt Gaetz is basically the human embodiment of a Hannity monologue, which I guess is somewhat entertaining, but not full of any sort of factual information at all. And that's where we're at today. No factual information from the Republicans. Again, trying to, refuse the reality that we have a criminal president who obstructed justice. And they are trying to spin their own narrative and say, it's not us that's the problem. No, it's the Democrats. It's never us.